Well, shall we get started? I want to give a
Get
quick
into
little
it.
intro to Wayne, and just
Yeah.
embarrass him a little bit, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Bobby will give a little intro too.
Oh, I
Uh,
love embarrassing.
Everyone, we are so lucky to have Wayne here today. Wayne, I've been excited for this talk, big time. I've gotten to know Wayne over the years. We worked together at Disney now 7 or 8 years, but I had the pleasure of sitting next to Wayne for the last 2 years on Frozen 2. Wayne was animal supervisor on Elsa and other characters, and he'll talk more about that. But Wayne's just the best. I mean, if you've been lucky enough to have him as a mentor, you already know this. If you haven't had him, you'll get to know this. But Wayne is what you see is what you get. He is genuine. I was writing down words to describe Wayne. Usually I try to write down like 3 words, and the first word I wrote down was unicorn, because
Gosh.
simply put, Wayne is a unicorn. Wayne is like, he cares as much about the crew and the people around him as he does the work. And he's just the most generous artist, and getting to know him for the last 2 years has been awesome. And he's just that type of guy that when you ask Wayne for help, which I did a lot on Frozen 2, like every day I'd be like, yo, Wayne, help me out. I can't figure this out. He not only shows you how to do it, he teaches you how to do it. He will sit beside you for hours if it means that you come to understand how this thing works. And so Wayne is a teacher at heart, and you'll see that when you watch his bouncing ball demo. It's like listening to Bob Ross. I had it on yesterday, and Wayne is like a modern day Bob Ross. And it's just, Wayne, it's a pleasure to have you here. When Rise Up started, Wayne was one of the first people to text us and be like, hey, I want to help, let me know how. And now we got Wayne here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You guys are going to have to do one of these talks so we can embarrass you guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Trav.
Oh,
I wanted to say really quick, just to give everybody an update. Sorry, Trent, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to drink my coffee, that's all.
Okay, Wayne, no, I'm going to embarrass you again. So for everybody, Wayne has been a character animator on such films as Meet the Robinsons, Tangled, my favorite CG animated film of all time. Wreck-It Ralph is where I met Wayne, and then he's been a supervising animator on both Frozen and Frozen 2, where he supervised the animation on Elsa. And then Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, you also oversaw the animatronic animation on Elsa in the Walt Disney World ride, right?
Yeah, that was really fun.
That's
It
cool.
was to work with Imagineering during that period. It was right after Frozen Fever had finished.
Yep.
And they asked me to supervise the animation for the ride.
Yep.
And so I got to animate some animatronics. It was really cool.
Wow.
Imagineering is like NASA. It's awesome. They're
Wow.
the
That's really
engineers
cool.
there and everything.
Well, and also when you learn about Wayne, you learn that he's a very curious artist. He's always, I feel like Wayne, every time you came in on a Monday during Frozen 2, you're like, hey, I built this thing over the weekend, or I got this drone. Like you're just always like making stuff with your hands. So when they said that you were gonna be the lead on the animatronics, the animation lead on the animatronics for the first, it was like perfect. I mean, you knew Elsa. And
Perfect man.
Perfect.
The most perfect person in the world. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Thank you.
My closest working relationship with Wayne was on the Frozen Fever short that you mentioned, and I had this really long shot of Anna and Elsa, and I remember going to Wayne for feedback on it and that kind of stuff. And what Wayne would do, which is perfect, is kind of he would take a certain keyframe of Anna and Elsa together, and then he would copy it over and make his adjustments. And sometimes the adjustments were big, and sometimes the adjustments were so minute that only Wayne Unton can sort of pick them apart. And then he would be like, here's your frame, and then here's my frame. Here's your frame, here's my frame. Do you see the difference? And I'm like, yeah. And in my mind, I was going, oh man, I just couldn't see a difference at all. Because my mind, my mind doesn't work as detailed as Wayne's. So I'm just like, yeah. yeah, yeah. High five. And he's like, good. And he leaves. And I'm like, I'm toggling. I can't see the difference at all. But I'm just going to take his keyframe, put it in my shot.
Oh man, that shot came out great. I remember that. It was at the very end. It was close to the end when Anna and Elsa are on the clock tower. Yeah.
He's being very kind.
I've been in that same situation where it's like you just have to accept that Wayne has a much better eye, and that I just can't see what he sees, but he's right.
You can see it.
For sure.
You know, yeah. Anyway, enough. I'm sorry to embarrass you for 2 hours. But beyond that, if you guys haven't seen it before, Wayne did a ball bounce demo for our YouTube channel. And of course, he said, hey guys, I'm going to do a ball bounce demo. And we're like, great, that sounds awesome, man. 5-10 minute thing. And in true Wayne fashion, he did the ball bounce demo in 2D animation, stop motion, and CG animation, which is very kind and thorough, and very much Wayne, just kind of like getting into the passion of like, Wayne is the most passionate animator that we know.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add really quickly with the bouncing ball for everyone watching. I thought I knew the bouncing ball. I mean, I've been working for 10, 12 years. I thought I knew it. And then I watched Wayne's video and I learned so much. I texted him. I was like, no one's ever explained timing and spacing to me in that way. Like, I don't know if I understood the principles until watching your video.
No.
Yeah. The YouTube link is on our Instagram, and
I see there's a question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. Thanks for letting me do that. I figured, like, the bouncing ball is like a perfect one to like start with, because those principles are so important. And when looking at reels and things like that, those are a lot of things that we comment on, like mechanics, and things like squash and stretch, or slow and slow out, and arcs and things like that. So I thought that would be a perfect way to show that. But then also, like, and I mentioned this in the video, like, I get asked a lot by parents, like, my kid wants to do animation, and like, how can I help them with that? Like, what can they do? And the bouncing ball is perfect because it is like, it's simple enough to do, especially like in stop motion, like, it's fun. You can grab like toys and things like that and move them, and like just have fun with it. But then those principles are like super important. So thanks for
I love that you kind of showed the application of it, especially with that little seal test you did. The bouncing ball is in everything.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. No, it's true. But yeah, no, it's hopefully people have fun with it, and it's crazy like how many like tools like are available now to do these things. Like the DS was one, because like I figured a lot of people have a 3DS, so they can do it on the program, by the way, is called Butterfly Animation, Inchworm Animation 2, that you can get on their 3DS app store. But yeah.
That's awesome. And something else everyone should know about Wayne too is that Wayne, before we get into
this is like a reverse roast.
Yeah, is that Wayne is always animating, and Wayne's got this great is it a Tumblr animating for fun, and now you have the Instagram page.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like Wayne is, he'll be standing in line. Yeah, I remember you once saying, "Hey, I was standing in line for 3 hours at Comic-Con, and I did this little test on my DS, and you showed it to me," and I was like, in my head, I was like, well, out loud, I was like, "That's cool, man." In my head, I was like, "That's better than anything I've ever animated." Standing in line at Comic-Con.
It was so fun. Like, okay, so I figured out so on the Nintendo DS, they had, or the DSi at the time, you could download this program. It was the first version of that program, Inchworm Animation, and it was so exciting because like you could just flip it open, and it's just a DS, but then like you can draw on it anywhere. And this was before you could animate on the iPad. You know, before they had the pencil on the iPad.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool. The
Yeah.
timing, it wouldn't play like at 24 frames per second reliably when you hit
Yeah.
playback. So
Yeah.
there was like limitations to it, but you could still have fun with it. And like, I don't know, it was just so fun to work on and do those things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's so cool. It shines through in all your little tests, and
Yep.
and I hope people get to see them. We talk about them later on, but
Right.
that you just have fun. Like you're not animating to make a demo reel or you're just having fun doing it, and your passion kind of shines through in all those tests, which is so cool.
And then those fun tests, they're better than anything we've ever animated, Trent and I combined.
Combined.
No.
But yeah, I mean, we can sort of like, I know you have a lot of stuff that you want to show, so we want to make some time for that as well, Wayne. But like in the beginning, man, like walk us a little bit through your formal years. I mean, like high school, art school, and then what was art school for you? And did you know you wanted to do animation?
No, I mean, when I was young, I always liked drawing. And I don't know, my parents were always, I felt like they were always supportive of me. My dad was in construction, and he, actually we would, well, I don't know how far back you guys want to know about me.
I want to know right when you came out of the womb. I want to know how you felt about things. No, but just like a little bit of the.
Well, I have a twin brother.
Whoa.
And so that's how we started. my twin brother and I, we would actually follow my dad around at like job sites and stuff like that, because I think he would be working on jobs, and then we would just be there. And so like I don't know, it was just really cool, like kind of learning some things about like construction and stuff. So there was that. When I was young, I would draw a lot. And Transformers is kind of a great way to like learn how to draw, because it's like a lot of times there were like box figures, and like you're drawing cubes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly like figuring that out, like a cube, like, oh yeah, you draw like two parallel lines, and then it gets turned, and then you have like two other parallel lines, and it's like there's a form now. And it was like this thing that just I don't know, drawing Transformers was great for that.
And just to clarify, you're talking about Michael Bay Transformers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then also to clarify, you were 7 years old and you had that analytical mind, and then cut to me and Trent, and we're catching frogs in a pond.
No, we did that too. That was fun. Those were, what? Actually, I kind of want to say this. Like, it's fun to like, do art and stuff, but just have fun with life too. Like, you can't like I don't know. It's like we were, I don't know. When I was in high school, I don't know. I shouldn't say this, but like, I wasn't like drawing all the time. I love to draw, but then like, my dad had this like welding set, and like he was talking about like when he was a kid, like how he would he built this go-kart, with wood and stuff like that, and a lawnmower engine, and like so we had, I wanted to learn like, the how to weld, because I like my friend had a go-kart, and like so I was like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna grab some scrap pipes, and then like those like I don't know, those push cart wheels, like, and then we welded it to like this cart, and like just had fun learning and building. And I don't know, we would make movies when we were like kids and stuff like that, just having fun. So
how did you choose your art school, or like from that weird transition from like high school to art school is so awkward sometimes. Like, how was it clear for you, or was it?
No. No, it wasn't. actually, because back then, like you didn't have the internet as a resource really. It was not like today anyway. Uh, and I would say like I remember my sixth grade art teacher was really cool. He really encouraged me like to do art, as a career. Like I just had fun drawing. So like I remember doing an illustration and just being very encouraging. And I don't know, I think that kind of like also helped my parents see that, I guess, that like oh, I don't know, they supported me. And
Right.
I think a lot of it had to do with that teacher, just also being very encouraging. And then in high school the same way, like there were some teachers that were very encouraging. And I don't know, it's not like I was any good or anything like that. It was just like I don't know, had this passion for it. And
Yep.
so in high school there was this place in Orange County, this high school that I had heard about that had this animation program there where they were teaming up with Warner Brothers.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was really cool at that time. It was Rolling Heights. But I heard about it, and like I wish I could have. I think Bert went through that program.
That's right.
Um,
Clay
And
too. I think Clay too.
yeah, yeah, Clay Kiddis, yeah.
oh really? Oh cool. Yeah. That's right. So I had heard about it, and my mom was actually, she was a counselor over at a high school in San Pedro, and so she had actually heard, like they had sent this pamphlet, I guess, about that program. And so she kind of heard a little bit about it, and she knew that I was interested in animation, but actually I didn't pursue it then. It was because I was already going to high school. And but then it turned out that at Cal State Fullerton, which is very close to that area, they were going to have the program there. So it was kind of like this, almost kind of like this, which is kind of weird to think about, like back then, I guess. But it was kind of like a webcam type conference with Warner Brothers.
Hmm.
And so that was their animation program, and it was pretty cool at that time. Because I mean, nowadays we have this, like this is you talk to industry people, and like they can give tips and advice and things like that, and portfolio reviews and stuff. I mean, this is really cool. But at that time it was kind of like, oh wow, this is amazing, like that the school offers that. So yeah, Cal State Fullerton was where I went. Before that, though, I actually went to Cal State Long Beach, just doing my general education, and I was going to go into graphic design. And I really didn't. I don't know. It was one of those things where you start doing it, and then you realize that's not what I want to do.
Hmm.
And uh, I actually couldn't take a lot of the art classes because it was so impacted, because I guess graphic design was very big over there at the time. And some people would just wait, like semesters would go by, and like they couldn't get into like the very basic of art classes. And I remember talking to someone who was much older than me, still going to that college and still waiting to get into those art classes.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not what I want to do. And it's interesting because like at that school, um, they have like this University 101 class where they talk about university life and everything. And it was really cool that that professor, he mentioned a lot of really cool things, like about how, this isn't like high school where, you know, if you don't show up to your college classes, then no one's going to care. It's this is really about your own education. And if you want to, if you want to learn, this is a place of like learning and sharing ideas. And it's like this community of these, and it was really cool just to think about. He was talking about like, like the Greek philosophers, and like, like how they would come together, and just, this is a place of learning. And if you're not learning, if you feel like you're not getting your education, then go get your education somewhere else. Like if like, and that was really good for me to hear, like, because at that time I was like, okay, well, and I was working with my dad too, um, in construction at that time. I was helping him out because I was also doing classes. But I remember telling him like, there's a school that I actually really want to go to, but it would mean it would be further away. I wouldn't be able to work with you. And, you know, and he was like, he was very supportive. He said, well, you know what, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. And that meant like I would be moving out of the house. And you know, it wasn't that far away. It's like I live in LA and like it's Orange County, but like to me it was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So I had that full support from my parents, you know, to do that, to pursue art. And I was very grateful for that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then,
I just love what you're saying about the school stuff too, because I think we get a lot of questions with Rise Up of, do I need to go to CalArts to get a job? Do I need to, you know, go to one of these big schools? And I just kind I love what you're saying about, you just kind of have to take your education in your own hands, and the ball's in your court to kind of like find that program that works for you, whether it's online or self-taught or at one of these more expensive art schools. It's kind of on you, and you kind of have to drive that, kind of self-drive that initiative.
yeah, no, it's true. Like I was very fortunate. Cal State Fullerton had a great program, and you know, it. I mean, a lot of it. It was just. I don't know, I I love my education experience. Like it was very good. Like um, I felt that a lot of it was also the peers that I had there. Like because you know at the time it was just learning traditional animation, and it was like the last semester I was there. Finally, they were teaching CG animation, and so it was really, I don't know, it was good. It was a lot of times like my friends would be the ones, we would all bring in our computers at night, and like the teachers were cool with us working in the labs, and they would give us a key for the lab, and it was just this empty room basically. And we would bring in our towers. Like it wasn't like laptops how we have now, or you know, but it was like this tower that we would have to bring in, and then like with a monitor, and we would set up yeah, every night we would bring it in and then like set up and then just work together, and we'd all be helping each other out. And it was really cool. There's this one guy, Mike Altamirano. I have to give a shout out to him because like he was they called it the CG Mafia, and like I feel like I was kind of invited into that group. You know, I was like the plus one to that group. But it was really cool because they would all just help each other out. Like, you know, some people wanted to do games, some people wanted to do you know, viz dev, some people wanted to do animation for feature, and like, you know, it was just great. Like everyone was helping each other out. Like one guy, he learned rigging. He was taking a rigging class, and then he would bring back what he learned, and then he would share it, and then like yeah, it was just really great. Like Mike was awesome because like his brother would he would offer to like build us computers, like for like, you know, so we didn't have to like fork out a ton of money. Like, you know, we would just buy the parts and he would build it for us. And yeah, no, and it was a great time to just learn and have fun learning.
Would you say, Wayne, that you were learning as much from your peers in that like kind of tight group, as you were from
Oh
your
yeah,
teachers, like just leaning on
definitely.
that your peers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was great because the you know the teachers there, like we were learning about. We had like a story class. There was an animation class, drawing class, illustration, character design class, and you know, I would have to say like not all the students were as driven, um, but it was it was really cool. The ones who were like, we all got together and like there was an animation club, and then we would go to different events a lot of times and like just geek out over animation. Like there was like a VHS machine where you can like do the jog on it, and like so you can step frame through VHS tapes. and so we would do that and just study the animation, and like it was like animation geek out party. It was fun. I don't know. I love hanging out with those guys still.
Yeah.
That's so
I,
awesome.
I had that same experience, Wayne, where you kind of find like-minded, hardworking students. That you guys tend to gravitate towards each other.
Yeah.
And then by the time, Wayne, I was going to ask is like, by the time you were graduating, did you kind of have a clear sense of what your sort of like short-term goal was?
Oh yeah.
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 What was it for
Well,
you?
it was actually well, when I was mentioning like how I went to Cal State Fullerton, I knew I wanted to do character animation at that point. Like,
Okay.
I would play a lot of video games when I was growing up, and what made me actually want to do animation was those old LucasArts games, like Sam and Max, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Actually, I wrote a letter to the guy who directed that game, Hal Barwood. He directed that movie Dragon Slayer, the one that it was Tippett, right? Who did the dragon animation? Yeah,
That's right.
So, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, I wrote a letter to him, and he wrote back, and like I sent some drawings to him. This is when I was in high school, and he just gave some really good advice that I wasn't even really ready for yet. He was saying there's this program called Alias Wavefront, which is kind of like where then Maya, Alias,
Yep.
Maya, and then Autodesk, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was talking about like how things were starting to move to CG, and just recommending that try to find a place that teaches those things.
Yep.
Anyway, but when I went to Cal State Fullerton, I knew I wanted to do character animation.
Okay.
I kind of already knew like by that time, I was a fan of like Aladdin, and I remember seeing Mulan, and I remember just thinking like, oh man, that just like really sucked me into this other world, and like that was, I don't know, it was just so cool. And around that time, Iron Giant came out when I was actually in college, so like everyone was like on this like high of like, oh my gosh, Iron Giant is so awesome. And then we're in college, and we're like, oh, I want to learn animation. It's so great.
Is that your move? Like, is that the movie that? Well, at that point you were already at college for animation, but is that kind of one of the movies that just really pushed you even more?
Yeah, that I think for a lot of us, because we were, we had like a small group of friends who were just like all into animation, and we were like just geeking out over like the Tony Fucelli designs, and like we were just like the style of it. Like we didn't know a lot of things at that time, I feel like, but like we kind of were seeing like, wow, this is a really cool way that they're telling the story. How they're like, it was kind of different from what you would normally see in animation at that time. And like like, oh, that is interesting, the framing on that shot, or the choices that they were making. And it was funny. Like I remember, I feel bad, but like when we went to go see it in the theater, I went with a friend from high school actually, and we went to the theater, and no one was in the theater. And it was like, and we were watching, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then, well, actually it was kind of like, yeah, this was good. It started out that way. It was like, this is really good. This is really, and then the next day would go by and be like, that was really good. That was like, and then just thinking about it, yeah, I cried at that moment, didn't I? That was, and like, it was like, I don't know. Anyway,
there's such a like a tragic story behind the release and the marketing of that movie. And I mean, I'm sure I can speak for all of us. You can't not cry at the end of that movie, and it's still just one of the greatest animated movies of all time.
Yeah, they were doing some really fun stuff in there. So we were all geeking out over that, and just trying to get to that level. And I sucked in college. I was not very good at all. Like it was, but I learned a lot, and I think this is like something that I see in a lot of like I don't know, like I remember where I was at. Like I learned a lot of things in college, but when I graduated college, I didn't have a demo reel or something that was presentable to like to submit to a place to get a job. But I had all this knowledge that I had learned. So like after I graduated, I remember telling my parents like, okay, I have all this knowledge now. I now need to make a portfolio to get a job, and they didn't really understand that. They were like, "Wait, you went to college, and now you're not going to get a job right away." And I said, "No, I gotta. This is how it works. Like the degree actually didn't mean anything. Like it was like that's not going to help me get a job. Like what's going to help me get a job is my portfolio and my reel." And but it was great learning all those things. It's only until when you apply it, like I feel like that's where like you really start to really grow. So like I mean there were some great story classes that I took, and it's funny, but those story classes made its way into my animation. Like just thinking about the way you set up, like okay, you're telling a story in a shot, and like there's like a flow to that shot, you know, like there's, you may want to have it like be interesting at first, and then maybe it like, you know, it kind of, well, that dies down, but like, you know, you save that, you know, for maybe the next interest, you're composing basically.
Yeah.
And those things like they stuck with me, and like even like 3D design, not 3D design but 2D design, or you know, there was this design class that I took. Was this like, maybe this was at Cal State Long Beach actually, now I think about it. But there was this design class that was like, you know, it was so out there. Like it was like taking pieces of cardboard and like cutting them and then like gluing them together to make forms. But it was interesting because there, and he was just like, a lot of, well, the students were just like, this is maybe too much. No, it was Cal State Fullerton, now that I think about it. It was like, this is a weird crazy sculpture that you're making. But he was teaching design things like there's like point and then counterpoint, and like the thing that like it, in a way it's kind of like the thing that speaks the loudest. And then like I remember taking this jazz class, and like uh he was talking about like how Louis Armstrong would, like when he played the trumpet, it wasn't like just like da-da-da-da-da, it was like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like very very like specific notes, and like hitting like, you know, and it spoke louder than like if he was just playing, you know, it was just really well placed notes. And like it was just so cool just to like, you know, learn about that, and then like see how all these art forms were like very similar.
Converging. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, same goes with writing too.
Mhm.
um Anyway, it was fun. Like I feel like that, like I was taking other classes, you know, outside of just art, but like, you know, like music, I mean that is art, but like visual art anyway.
Mhm.
But it all applied. It was, and I don't know,
Mhm.
it felt like you could learn from anywhere.
Mhm.
And it all, yeah, it all, it is a human experience, right?
Mhm.
And so it kind of, it all relates. Sorry, I'm going off on
No, no,
this
no, no.
weird
I
topic.
mean, Wayne,
This,
beautiful.
this is
I mean, that's awesome, man.
Wayne. Can I ask you just because you know it's so interesting to me. Well, one of the things I admire about you is that it doesn't seem like you're ever like comparing yourself to others. You're kind of just you're learning, you're enjoying the process, and well, first of all, I don't believe that you sucked in college, but
I don't believe that either.
I don't believe a word of
Not
it.
for me.
But I love that, you know, you had that mentality after college of, you know, now I need to apply this stuff. And I think there is a misconception that you go to school, you get a degree, and you get hired right away at your dream job. But can you talk about that period, like right after college, where you're
Sure.
still in that mentality of like, how do I apply this? How do I build a demo reel? And how do I
Well,
just like not compare myself to others and just kind of do it for the process?
sure. Yeah. Well, definitely. I guess I'll say some things, but I don't know if it's like for everyone. But like, I'll say some things. Okay, so um, that's funny. Sorry, I'm just gonna back up a little bit. College back then, I think there was like pressure. Like I remember like thinking like I wasn't working with my dad anymore. I wasn't helping him out, and he was going to support me, and that meant a lot. You know, my both my parents, they supported me, but like college isn't like as expensive as it is nowadays. It was like $970 for a semester. Like it was like, you know, it was different. It was a different time. And so like I think the financial pressure was different. So I kind of want to mention that. But still it was there. It was, the pressure was there. Like I wanted to get a job. I needed to get a job. At the same time, I didn't choose character animation because of the money. Like that was not like the reason why I wanted to do character animation. So I knew specifically why I wanted to do character animation. It was, well, for me, and people have different things that interest them, and like, but for me, I knew I wanted to do specifically character animation for feature film. Like I remember there was like an enjoyment that I had watching movies that like I was like, okay, I want to do that. Like that is what I want to do. And like actually even later on, I'll share this one story. Sorry, I will get back to that topic though. But
Perfect.
there was this one story. I was watching PBS. That was the thing that we watched when we were kids. When we were growing up, we were watching PBS a lot. But there was one, and this was later actually, but it still applied. I was watching this thing on PBS about just stories from war where there was like traumatic brain injuries and like how they didn't have any physical, you know, disabilities after that, but like it was a brain trauma, and then like it was talking about that, and there was one actually that was really pretty bad where sorry, I don't mean to get too dark, but there was one story where this person had a head injury, and you could tell like half of his skull was removed and everything, and it was really hard to watch, but then the thing that they did, and because he had a wife and kids, and the thing that they did, there was like he was trying to get better, and then they allowed him to go see a movie with the family, and it was like this is like the only thing that they have to spend time together as a family was to go see a film, a movie, an animated movie in the theater, and it was a big deal for them, and it was like that's awesome. Like I want like if I can create something like a character or a story, tell a story that like is there for people, because you don't know like what you know there's a lot going on in the world, and like people sometimes they go see movies and like they want to spend time with the family and like just have a good time, and I was like that's what I want to do. And actually I take that back. That was like a little later. I think I had just started Disney at that time, and I remember I was watching this documentary and I was just crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what like still like this is what I want to do. Like this, I want to like work even harder and like focus my energy on like making something that is for them. It's the audience. Like I want to make sure that we're making a great story, like that we're doing great acting, and like it's entertaining for them. And yeah, that was just like this motivator for me, because even like when you get a job in animation, you have to remind yourself like why you're doing this, and so yeah, that was really cool.
And Wayne, that it feels like that's still something that drives you. I mean, if you all saw Into the Unknown documentary, you saw Wayne in the first episode reading a very special letter from a fan in the hallways of Disney, and you're right, it's like an escape for people that are struggling or having a hard time, and I love that moment in the documentary.
That was awesome that she wrote that in, actually, and then someone, whoever gets the letters that come to the studio, they put that on the wall there. Like I remember just when I found that and just reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, I mean, you hear like a lot of stories about like, the characters we create and like how they speak to people, and to think that, man, we had a little part in that, like creating that character and the difference it can make. Like it's awesome. Anyway, so that's going back to why I knew I wanted to do that. So your question was about going into college and then the period after college. Yeah,
You
I
know,
knew.
I forgot my question.
It would
Well,
be,
no, I mean, it's.
I think like for me, like Wayne, and for everybody else that would want to know, it's just that transition from like school to breaking into the industry, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so knowing what I wanted to do was big. Like I think that was like that helped me focus. So there was a period of time where I mentioned I went to a different college and I was taking classes. I thought I was going to do graphic design, and I found that wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. And I realized that, and so I could just put my whole heart into character animation and do it. And if I discovered that that's not what I wanted to do, I would make sure that like, okay, well maybe there's something else that but I wouldn't want to go into that. But I knew I wanted to do character animation for feature film, and and there was other people there too that like I want to do video games. Like they're like, okay, I want to do that, or I want to do viz dev, like, and they just focused on that. And I think that's huge. I think that's really important, because like even when I in college after I graduated, I knew what to focus my reel on, and I knew what I needed to do. And at the time, there was no 2D really going on. It was all CG. Everything was going CG, and I just learned, a little bit about Maya the last semester I was there, and then again, my friends were doing Maya, so like I was already practicing it, and I knew that okay, if I need to put together an animation reel, but there was like no rigs out there really. It wasn't like you could just download, like I remember there was like one rig that you could download, and it was not very good. It was like, it wasn't very appealing, and like it couldn't do, like I played around with it and I was like trying out things, but it's like, wait, there's no like squash and stretch with controls or anything. Like it's like, how do you? And it was funny, I will say, I remember I went to Comic-Con one year, and it was the year they showed, it was before Incredibles came out, and I remember watching just a preview of Incredibles. It was the sequence where Bob first encounters the Omnidroid, and it was like he just does this take where he's like, like, and the Omnidroid is coming at him, and I was like, wow, there's squash and stretch and CG. I mean, you saw it in Nemo a little bit, but like it was like, wow, that's a human character, and it's doing squash and stretch, and I don't know, that was really cool. But yeah, so went back when I was there was this rig that they had, and it was just not very good. So what I did was like, okay, well I have to learn to build. I need to build a rig if I'm going to show things like squash and stretch. I need to have something that I can actually show it with.
Wayne, I love, this is your mentality in a nutshell. Like if that was the only option for me, I'd be like, well, I give up. I guess I'll never animate in CG. And you're like, I guess I'll build a rig and learn how to do this.
Well, it wasn't a very good, it wasn't like, okay, so I knew enough, like I knew what I didn't like in CG animation at the time. Like I knew, like, because you see like things where they model a face and then they try to rig it, and like it doesn't look very good. And like I knew I didn't want to go into modeling. I didn't want, like I wanted to get to animation, and so I didn't want to light it or anything like that. So I kept it simple. It was like still kind of geometric shapes, and maybe I have a picture of it. Well, I'll see if I can find it. Maybe I'll share it later. Anyway, so I kept it very simple. It had eyes. It had this region that I wanted to be very expressive. and the rest were, you know, just kind of like simple, basic geometric shapes. It was just gray. It wasn't lit. The scene wasn't lit or anything. And yeah, spent 9 months learning how to. Actually, I have the book. I think. Let me go grab it real quick.
What? Where'd he go?
He's never come back. He's done.
You know, I do this a lot when I'm talking to students or mentees on this. I go run off.
I'd be like, was that story done?
This is the book, actually. Maya 5.
Nice.
Like just learning like how to like rig and everything. But they talked about like What's
Sorry.
that?
I remember trying to learn CG and many of those books and just going, and these books are so thick.
It was really cool. Like that's interesting. I have these notes in here. Wow. Anyway, it was really cool because they would talk about like, oh, you know, like deformers and like how to bind joints and things, and they would tell you like how they would do it. And I was like, that's a cool thing you can do. I'm not gonna do it that way though. Like I want to do something different. But it was like someone like showed you like how to put together the Legos, and now you could build anything. And it was like, oh, cool. So I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with it, and I was like, do I want to do rigging? I don't know. But I was like, no. I want to do animation, and then like. So I spent 9 months doing rigging or learning as much as I could doing rigging. And then I rigged a character and then spent the last 3 months animating a reel. And that's what I submitted. So it took about a year. It was a year. And that was actually...
sorry to interrupt, but in that time, how did you, we get a lot of questions of how do you like discipline yourself and stay focused, and we know that you had that kind of like very focused North Star of I want to be a character animator. But in those 9 months, are you saying like from 9 to 5, I'm gonna go through chapter 1? Like how do you stay disciplined through that?
That was funny. Actually, I had 2 good motivations, well, maybe there's a few, but like 2 ones that I could think of. The first one was. So there are a few. So one, I knew I needed to get a job, and I made this kind of like agreement with my parents. Like I needed to like get a job, and I had like 1 year to do it. And I was working with my dad in construction as well, after I graduated. So I was doing that, and after a year, if I couldn't get a job, like they would support me. I would still be working with my dad, but then I just had to work with him, and I would kind of like just work with him in the business. And it wasn't like a business. It was just him. But like, so I was like, okay, cool. So there was kind of like this timeline that I had. The second was I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And the third was I was working with him. I don't know, I think 7 in the morning to 4 at night was like I'd be working with him on jobs, and like they sucked. They sucked so bad that it was a great motivation to get a job. It was like,
and it's physical labor too, right? So you're
and it sucks. Like I don't know how. I remember I was on a rooftop. And we were putting in shingles on this what do you call that? Those roofs where they're kind of like, I forgot the name of it. But anyway, it's like it's a pitch roof that and like it's like hot, and we're putting this thing, and I don't want to fall off this roof. And I'm like, this is not good. And then I remember it was funny because I was learning Maya, and then like we had to build something, and I remember like at night I built the house, or not the house, but it was like this office space. There was like this garage that was built onto this garage, and we were doing before we were doing the foundation. I was like, oh yeah, I just want to build it in CG, and then like impose put it on the photo that I had taken, and then like anyway. But I remember then we were in the pit, like I was in the like we were mixing the cement, and like my dad took a photo of me actually when I'm like in the cement, like putting it down, and I'm like have the trowel, and then I'm putting the cement down after we put the frame, and like and he took a photo, and I look so miserable in there. I'm like, and I gotta find that photo because that's like my motivation. Like I need to not do this. So yeah, around like 4 o'clock, that's when like we would end the job, and like it would be early in the morning, and then like we would kind of get out early, and like I do remember that so then we would shower and everything like that, and then get cleaned up, and then like that's when I would just go into the room, and I didn't have. It was funny, like I didn't even have a desk. Like I had like my brother's guitar case is where like I put my monitor on, and like the keyboard. I put a towel on it, and I put the monitor and keyboard, and like it was propped up on cardboard boxes on one side, cardboard boxes on the other side. The guitar case was the desktop, and I would put like the monitor on there, and then I would be working like that for a while, and just following this book, and like trying to learn it. Yeah, and it was at night, basically, and so that was like, and I shouldn't say it got better. Like that was just like when I first moved back, and then yeah.
I mean, something that I would want to know as like someone in your position, like many years ago too, Wayne, is like you're hustling and you're building your portfolio. What do you think about your work that you were doing at that time actually helped you finally get your foot in the door? Like what were the specific elements of your demo reel, or these kinds of things? What do you think?
I was doing acting in there. Like I was showing, like I did some it was funny because it didn't really change. Like it doesn't really like when we look at portfolios now, but I knew I needed to do acting, and so I was trying to do acting. I was trying my best to do performance acting,
Yeah.
and I had a couple of mechanics things in there, that showed again like trying to show that the character is thinking even in those mechanics tests. This is funny because this is exactly the advice I give to students nowadays. But that's what I was trying to like. I don't know. I picked that up or from somewhere, but even back then I knew that like I needed to focus on acting. I remember reading. Actually, this is a funny. You're bringing back all these memories. I remember reading in, was it the Art of Treasure Planet book? Reading like.
And that I still have.
Yeah.
It.
Yeah. I have it there. Anyway, I was just reading some of the stories in there, and then I remember there's this guy named John Ripa, and he was talking about when he animated Jim Hawkins about the eyes, and like how he's focused in on the eyes and what it communicated. And fast forward, actually, fun thing, when I got to Disney, he was my mentor, and oh my gosh, that was like, whoa, this is like I looked up to you all. Sorry, this is gonna be like a gushing for John, because like oh my gosh, I owe a lot of my career to him. Like he is such a giving person, and he's really good. He's really amazing. Anyway, so I was already looking up to him, and like I got there, and he was my mentor, and so he was my mentor for 9 months, because it was the apprentice program had just started back up. They were finally hiring from the outside again, and they just started that. And yeah. Oh, in the chat it says,
I put it.
What's your mentor's name? John Ripa.
Yeah. And I feel like we could all gush about John. That he's such a generous artist, and he's on Instagram. If you don't know his work, it's time to learn about John Ripa, because he's just incredible.
He did Young Tarzan, and he was mentored by James Baxter, and he worked really closely with Glenn on Tarzan and Treasure Planet. And yeah, he's amazing. Like, I love the way that he thinks about his shots, like, or story, actually, just in general. Like, and so he made the transition from animation to story, and like you can totally see that, like, it's perfect, because like he was already thinking about the character and like the overall story that he wanted to tell. And yeah, sorry, one last thing I would gush about him. If you ever, like, in the Disney films, like, he does like he came up with the idea for the lanterns in Tangled. He did like the climax in Frozen. He storyboarded that out. I think the climax in Big Hero 6. Actually, a lot of the climax moments in a lot of the films. And he's just an amazing story artist. But great animator. Oh my gosh. So like he would do things. Sorry. Okay, one more thing. So there was this thing that he did that, like, it was on TikTok Tail, Dean Short, and there's a thief in there, and like it was really cool. Just seeing like the way that Dean thinks too is amazing. But like there was a thief, and like the thief is like, he's got a clock too, or watch, pocket watch, and he's very, very specific. Like the way that he's looking at this clock, he's like thinking, okay, Big Ben's gonna ring. Big Ben rings, and then so he breaks the window, breaks into the clock shop to steal all the clocks. And John was thinking, well, you know, when he comes in the door, he should reach for the bell. I was like, what? And so like he knew that, yeah, in a clock shop, there's a bell on the door, right? And so he's trying to be quiet, and Big Ben is going off.
Yep.
So now he could break the glass, so the officer doesn't hear.
Yeah.
But then like he's so precise that he breaks in, walks in through the door, and just not even looking, just goes up and reaches the bell at the top of the door. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's thinking about like the environment that the character is in too.
Yes.
But it adds so much to that character, because you know, like this character is precise. He's like a professional thief. He has everything down to like the science of like, and he like, I think he's a clock lover too, right? Anyway, so like it was just so cool. Like that he thought about that. Like it's the action of him holding that bell says that he knows, like, one, he's a professional, and the fact that he doesn't even need to look at it. He's done this before. He's like, it's like, it tells you so much about the character just by one action. And I was like, that is brilliant.
History. He's done this before. Kind of like backstory. Done this before. Anyway, so you can see like how like him going into story is like perfect. Like he's always thinking about the character and the. Anyway, He would do. Remember Trent on Ripa's boards on Big Hero when we worked on it, and like him and Hero and Baymax saying goodbye, and he had like those like animation key moments, and like he would have like the glistening eye, and they would say goodbye, and it was almost like you just wanted the movie to be released in boards. And the moment of what I loved about, sorry.
Go ahead. You're going. Go.
What I loved about that moment was like the fact that he kept the in the boards, he kept the camera on Hero's face, and you just saw like this flash. It was like in slow motion. You just see this flash of light, and you knew like, oh no, he shot his arm off, but you don't see it shooting off. You see Hero's face, and you see like the expression on his face, and then you just see this flash of light. The rocket started shooting off, but it's all on Hero's face. It was like, oh my gosh.
He doesn't come back to Baymax, and he doesn't come back to what's happening. He like stays on the face.
And he shows exactly what happens later, but like it's like during that moment, it's like, what do you shoot, and like what is it's brilliant.
Everyone
brilliant.
In the comments is crying right now, and also that was
great. No, that was amazing.
We started talking about John's boards. I was like, I'm sure we've all been in that spot. I have, where I get the boards and I'm animating that scene, and I just think, I'll never be able to make it look as good as these boards. like I'll just try my hardest, but it will never look as
whenever I got John Ripa boards, I just tried to match those boards per key and then go off of that. You know what I
We
mean? Like just
yeah
really,
yeah.
really just kind of like because he was an animator, like he set up the key for you. It's almost like he did your research for you, your thumbnails, and you're
the
like,
mo-
okay, you're gonna go off that, and then just kind of like set my CG keys around his boards.
the moment where Anna is dying in the first Frozen, and you just see like he chose to have the camera at her feet. Remember that? Like it's all on the ice, the fjord, the frozen fjord,
Hmm.
and then you just see her stumbling,
Hmm.
and it's just on the feet, and she's being Justin Sklar animated that shot,
Hmm.
but like, and it turned out brilliant. But I remember that was like one where it was like, just kind of like do what John did there. Like it was so good. But
Yeah.
then you talk to John about it, and John was like, no, no, no. The animator comes up with the performance.
Mm.
And the animator is the one who does, so like he's like as amazing as his boards are, he was like, no, the animator should be doing
Hmm.
the finding that performance in there. And
Hmm.
I don't know, I love that guy. He's
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
awesome.
Uh,
We should FaceTime him right now.
You should get him on this thing, like not this one,
he
but like you should go
volunteered.
talk with him.
He
You know,
volunteered, right, Trent? At some point.
yeah, John Ripa is actually one of our volunteers, and I know he's super busy right now at work.
Yeah.
But as soon as things calm down a little bit, we're for sure gonna have him on here.
Um,
Yeah, awesome.
I mean, that'd be amazing. Wayne, do you want to segue to what you wanted to show of your work
Yeah.
as well?
Actually, I don't even know what time this thing ends. What time does it end? I
Oh,
don't.
we've been going for like 4 hours, so that's fine. Unless you had a heart out,
I don't.
I think we're just kind of go. But I
Cool.
did want to give you the time and to show the work that you wanted to show because we
Yeah.
got permission for it and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, so this is awesome. Uh, when I am looking at portfolios, a lot of times I'll see an acting performance, and like you could see like, okay, this person has a really good idea in there, but like it could be pushed, or
Mm,
like like I don't like saying that because it's like not very specific. It's like, what does that mean? What does pushing mean? And like, so a lot of times it's just getting specific. It's getting specific who this character is and like what the characters. And this is stuff that we learned. Like you hear a lot. Like Frank and Ollie, like said, like what is the character thinking? What is the character feeling? And like, but how do you get there? How do you get to that place? And like, I don't know. I love like some of the acting classes we took. Remember on Frozen, like how we had Warner Laughlin come in
yeah.
and talk about, yeah, and it was just like finding like a way to get to where the so you as an actor can get to that place so you can do that performance and it is specific. Remember that? Like,
Yeah, remember she was building backstories for all the
yes.
characters and
Yeah.
down to like the tiniest details.
Yeah, and I remember Glenn talking about that too. Like on Little Mermaid, he like did this like whole biography of Ariel and everything like that. And anyway, but what I really liked about what she was talking about, because she was like Amy Adams' acting teacher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was coming up with this backstory, but then like remember like how, sorry, I'm kind of going off on another topic, but I'll keep going. Remember that time when she had us do that exercise where we all said the Pledge of Allegiance in the theater, and we said, oh, we were all laughing because we couldn't remember. We were old and we can't remember the Pledge of Allegiance. But so it's the Pledge of Allegiance at school, right? And so we say, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and we're all laughing because we're all out of sync and everything. And it's just we're laughing, having fun. And then she tells the story, but in first person. Remember how she says, like she has us all close our eyes, and she tells the story, and she says like, I'm a little girl, I'm tucked in my bed, I have my toy with me, and she's creating the story, right? And so and then my mom puts me to bed, my dad puts me to bed, and then I'm sleeping comfortably, but then I hear a sound. What's that sound? Mom comes in, Dad comes in. They take me out of the bed. What's going on? I'm scared. I left my toy on the bed. We're like, there's this whole story. I won't get into it, but like we're closing our eyes and we're because she's saying in first person, we are that character and we're living that experience. And then the story goes that we get taken down. We're afraid. We go into the bomb shelter, and then Dad is outside. But it's getting louder and louder. We have to close the doors. Dad's left behind. We hear gunshots. The people are outside, and then we're scared. And then the door opens, and then we're frightened. But it's actually a soldier, and Dad is okay. He comes down the stairs, and then we're so happy that he's okay. And then the soldier has an American flag on his patch or something like that on the sleeve. And then she said, okay, now open your eyes. Okay, now say the Pledge of Allegiance. And remember how the tone was different? Now when we acted out or said the Pledge of Allegiance, no one was laughing. No one was like, it had this feel to it, like, because we lived that experience. So that meant something to it. It put us in this headspace of like, what does that represent to us? And it was just very, very eye-opening, I guess. But to think about who this character is, and when you're performing it, like to get into that character's head. And there were some other examples I remember they performed for us, and it was really cool. Like we all kind of knew who that character was, I guess,
right?
Because we had that shared experience of going through that exercise.
Yep.
Wayne, I remember that day so well, and it's such a clear way to demonstrate what that backstory means. But I also remember it because I don't know the Pledge of Allegiance because I'm Canadian, so it didn't really make a difference either way. I still don't know the words, but I'll go along with it.
Yeah, no, it was it was funny.
I remember one really quick thing, like this isn't as deep as anything else, but like when Idina Menzel came through from the first person, and she was talking about how when she sings, before she belts out a big tune, she goes, and then she belts it out, and then I remember seeing Wayne's eyes light up and going, oh, I'm gonna put that in my animation. So if you look at Frozen 1, right before she belts out the big like Let It Go thing, she does like a little like take. And
yeah, that was.
Remember that?
Yeah. And that was I remember I didn't put that in that breath, and there was a note that and it was like, of course, like it was like something like this is why you leave a list of things to check. Like Freddie Moore had that like list of things on his board.
Put it in there though in the end. Right?
I did put it in there. I did put it in there, but like I remember like I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I need to put it in the breath. Like it was like one of those things where it
was just the right amount. It wasn't so obvious, but I do notice it. I remember her saying that. I remember your eyes lighting up, and then I remember it in the shot.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. It was something that we were definitely pushing for. A lot of people, it was coming from different places about the breath. We were talking about the breath.
Right on.
Yeah.
Remember that day? I mean, it was. I remember it so well. In the Anim Pit, there's like 60 animators and Idina there, and she's singing "Let It Go" for the first time for us. Like she's 5 feet away from us. Like, and I remember her saying, like looking for a volunteer to say, like, someone come put their hand on my stomach because I want to show you what my diaphragm does when I hit like I forget which note, like a B flat. Let's see what it does. And I remember like everyone was so nervous, like, and I remember Doug was the one that's like, okay, I'll do it. But just like that level, like seeing that level of what you put into Elsa and what the crew put into Elsa and the singing and the research behind it is just so incredible.
Yeah,
everyone who animated Elsa did an amazing job. Like it's I mean, just to see people's reaction to watching the film and their love for that character, I think like it just hats off to everyone who worked on her.
Right.
You mentioned the breath, and like do you remember in like improv class that we would have at the studio, like they were talking about that, like how it comes from the again, like this is like where like it's fun because like you hear it from so many different places. Like you hear it from like improv, like because they're talking about how like the energy it starts there like that, and then that motivates, like, but it's almost like this, just like a touchstone for, like, maybe this is how it can start. And like, it's from the center, but like the energy, can originate from, like, anywhere. Like, you think like, oh, is it here, is it down here,
Right.
but like, yeah, I don't know, it's just so it's so cool to think about. I remember, like, there's the person, the dancer who came from the uh, Martha Graham dance company. Like, he was even saying, like, yeah, the breath, and like he was saying, like, I saw the movies you guys make, you're doing it already, like, it's there, like, but like, it was something that he was even picking up on, like, as a dancer, like, it starts here, and then the energy flows out, and then you can hear, like, all different things, like, like in Tai Chi, or like, like how, like, where that energy comes from. It's like, it's like, it's everywhere. Like, I don't know, it's fun hearing those commonalities, I guess.
Yeah.
We were talking about something, I don't remember the conversation.
Wayne, show us your stuff.
Oh, that's right.
And
Okay.
While Wayne pulls up his work here, I just want to say, like, for everyone watching, that like, Wayne's excitement about all these topics, that's just Wayne in a nutshell. Like, he will Wayne, you're always excited about research and like discovery and curiosity, and I just love that about you, because it is infectious to be around you in that way.
Well, thank you. It's fun though. It's totally fun. Like, I don't know, we're, how cool is this that we're creating life, with, in animation, and I don't know, it's fun. What was I talking about? I was talking about, like, so the clips I was going to show. Yeah. How did we get onto that topic? There was something I was gonna. Well, anyway, so I'm going to show these clips, and yes, that's right. So when we're creating a character, we want to get inside the character's head. And there's, like, many ways to do this, and like, I'm going to actually preface this right now. I'm going to show you something that, or at least one way that I work, and I'm not going to, this is not like I don't want to say, like, this is the way to always work, because it's never like that. Everyone has their different process, but this is just one way that has helped me in the past, and so I'm just going to talk about that. And this is kind of like, okay, so like how, okay, oh gosh, there's so much to talk about. Okay, like, we're telling a story visually, right? And we're basically communicating something to the audience. Whether we do that with composition, what we do that with, framing, the way that we do a character action, the way that the character is staged. We have all these different parts. We have shoulders, we have eyes, we have a head, but we can like tilt the head. We can do this. Like, they all are tools that can communicate something, an idea. And what's really cool, do you remember how, like, Glenn Keane and Mark Henn, they would talk to us about, like, how oh gosh, see, I always do this whenever trying to think of a name. I always forget because I'm on the spot. And gosh,
Rapunzel?
No, their mentor. Do you remember?
Glenn's mentor?
Yeah.
Freddie.
I thought it was Ollie.
Well, I mean, Ollie helped him, but it's oh geez, of course, I'm forgetting again.
What you're talking about? It's God.
Right. I'm a geek. I know this. Freddie Moore? Nope.
It's the guy that Eric Larson.
Eric Larson, thank you. Jeez.
Eric Larson.
Yes, no, but Freddie Moore, like, I remember him going to talk about. Anyway, so
Regina got it.
Thank you, Regina. Yes, Eric Larson. Yes. So Eric Larson would say, like, make a positive statement, and I remember them saying, like, what does that mean? Like, both instances, Glenn and Mark would say, like, what does that mean? And because it's just kind of a weird way of saying, like, be sure to make a positive statement. And um, what they were saying was what that meant was basically say something, like say like you're adding something to this, like make a positive statement, or you just make sure you are saying something and it's not wasted. So like, and that's kind of like what we do, right? Like, so every movement, like, I was talking about John, like, the thief holds the bell. It's like you're saying something, even in that action, you're saying something. You're telling the audience something about who that character is, or whatever about the character. And even it could be like, this is like where you could have like a character doing nothing and standing there, and then you have to say something about the character. Like it's everything should say something. So that's kind of like what I'm going to talk about here is like, what do you want to say? You should know what you want to say with this, and it shouldn't never be movement for movement's sake, but it should always be something that says something. Okay.
You ever hear that story Glenn tells about his first scene ever, and he's working under Ollie, and it's a little mouse sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
And he kind of showed that first pass, and it sounded like the first pass was kind of like a mechanical, like this is how you sweep a floor. And Ollie told him, well, like what's the backstory? Is he tired?
How does he feel about sweeping the floor?
Yeah, is this his first day on the job, and is he excited? Like, did he have a rough night, and this is like a real chore for him?
Yeah, it's like
we have a friend that has those drawings, Michael Woodside.
Yeah, Michael Woodside bought the drawing.
We're used to seeing amazing Glenn drawings, but here's this like small drawing of like a size of a quarter, and they're really uncertain, and they're really not as confident as the Glenn we know. But he's just kind of sweeping.
And side story, like Woodside bought that at an auction, I believe, for let's say $5, because the person selling
because no one knew who the artist was.
They didn't know.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
And then he remembered Glenn's story about and that was so cool, because that story is the one where Ollie is like teaching him. Yeah. Like kind of like the beginning of Glenn Keane in a way. I don't want to say that, but like it's like Ollie telling him like to think about the character, like because I remember Glenn's mentioning that story. He was saying like, who is Bernard? Like, does he like his job? Does he feel like he's doing a good job? Sweeping that floor, and like it was like Glenn would talk about like, oh yeah, like who is this character? And then Woodside was like, "Oh yeah, I'll take a few of these. I'll take this drawing. This is a nice drawing." And he buys the drawing, and I think he emailed Glenn or something like, "Is this your drawing?"
Kira verified it because she knew Glenn, and then Glenn's like, "Yeah, that's my drawing."
Yeah. But I have a Brad Bird drawing, actually.
How dare you?
From Iron Giant. Wow. I saw the same thing. It was the same thing. It was like.
Is it the coffee scene?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there was at one of those auction things, and they had I don't think they knew that Brad had only animated like one part in Iron Giant.
Go get that drawing. Go get it.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, and then also gonna have it. But you know what? I will say as a disclaimer, I told Woodsy about that drawing. And he jumped on it like hardcore, and then immediately. Sorry,
you found it.
It was at a D23, like at one of those like kind of D23 things. Go ahead, show it. Ooh wee!
I think I haven't confirmed it.
That is so funny.
So
that is so funny.
If Brad,
it's interesting, like. What you can learn from a drawing I don't know if this is his. I just heard that he animated this scene where he's drinking coffee.
No, he did.
I know he did the one where he's like, so and then like, is there more coffee too or something, or do you have more or whatever?
You could probably ask Jennifer Klein.
Yeah.
Or Bert. Maybe I'll ask Bert to ask Jennifer. And anyway, sorry, I don't know why we're talking about this on this.
Oh,
this is fun.
Yeah. I think
But
that's
it's really fun just like looking at some of the. I don't know.
no,
Okay,
no.
well,
Put it up to the screen.
so it's really fun just looking at people's work in general. I should say in general. It's just fun looking at people's work and just seeing like the choices that they made. They probably don't want that to be. 'Cause I don't know. I would be embarrassed if someone like looked at my
Well,
work, studied,
I
and then
mean, I feel like this one holds up as a key, though. You know what I mean? Like I mean, it's probably in between, but it holds up as a key. What's that say? Chai latte? What's the
H13. It is a key. It's at the top.
Oh yeah.
what's a ch? What is he saying?
Uh,
Children?
challenge.
Challenge. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so like I remember. Okay, so this is how much of a geek I am. I found. Remember, this is a long time ago though. I remember seeing roughs of the film, the whole movie, and in that shot, it was animated differently, at least at that version of it. And whoever did this, I think it's Brad, but whoever did it, it was different. The way that he animated it was different in that version, and the head was doing da 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 da. But in this version, the final version that's in there, he holds the head up high and holds that pose. Da, 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 da. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like you can see how the shot progressed.
Mm.
And it's better. It's like it anyway.
Yeah, it's simpler.
It's something. Yeah, I remember Eric Goldberg talking about this. Like like he was giving a lecture one time, and like there was like a baby crawling on the floor, and like the baby was doing all this stuff, and it's like, well, what if it just held that, and it was it held that pose of the baby, but then you just saw the legs moving, and it was so clear,
I like that
like
so much more.
so.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a more I don't want to say limited style, but like you think
No,
about
I like that. I like
yeah,
that.
like you think about like Toot Whistle Plunk Boom and some of the stuff that we were doing
like
in
that
there, like
I like
UPA,
that a lot more.
UPA-ish.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
immediately. Anyway.
Sorry, we
I
keep
like
getting
that-
sidetracked.
Like the go ahead, show your genius.
No, gosh.
Yeah,
Okay, so
let's talk about Wayne. We've talked about
Talk about Wayne.
Mark, John Ripa, Eric Larson, Brad Bird. Let's talk about Wayne.
Yeah, it's like I'm at Little Wayne.
gosh. Okay, so so again, I learned traditionally. So some of the things that I learned, doing it with like X sheets and stuff. So here's an X sheet. So you have like an action column, you have a dialogue column. You can write out like phonetically what the dialogue is. And then you could write down in the action like notes to yourself. This is the part where this happens. I know Eric Goldberg does this. Like he talks. Actually, you know what? So actually, I recommend his book. Where is it? Well, anyway, I recommend his book. Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah, Wayne's gonna go get it. I feel like I learned a lot from Eric's book. When I was trying to get in the business.
Yeah, me
This
too.
is an awesome book.
Yep.
Everyone should have this book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so actually, well, that's right. Yeah. So everyone should have that book. But that's kind of I saw. So okay, there was notes. His notes of that book that they were out there at one point, and
Yeah.
and I remember reading that, and a lot of it is like what how I learned animation is basically this book. It's basically this book. Yeah,
I remember.
I actually told him about it.
It was like like rough notes that he compiled for that book, right?
Yeah, and it helped me, so much. Anyway, this book. Anyway, okay. So, but he talks about that in there. I think he talks about it in there. But like, so you could use like different columns here, like just to jot down notes in a way. Like, so that's kind of like how I remember just thinking about like, okay, well, just planning animation. And there was this other book. It's funny, like I noticed like other artists would do this too. Like Bill Teitla, his wife wrote this book on, actually, it's like this is right before she died. she self-published a book on Bill Teitla, and it tells a lot about Bill Teitla. Probably too much that you don't want to know about. But in there's like a bunch of drawings that from Bill Teitla that she put in there. And in one of them, it even has like something like where it writes down the dialogue. And I was like, oh, that's so cool, because I do that too. Like, I think a lot of people do that. Like, especially like if you're doing it on here, like, you're planning things out basically. And by planning it out, it kind of forces you, again, remember how I was saying, say something, or, know what you want to say. So you have a goal. So I'm going to show, first of all, I got to say, big thank you.
Wayne, you're destroying my face. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I want to see your. I didn't know actually that you worked on Meet the Robinsons, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole. I never talked about like how I got to Disney, like the journey from like my portfolio reel to, because I'll talk about that after. Because you asked, someone asked that, and I never answered the question. Sorry. Okay. All right. So just staying focused for right now. Oh gosh.
Wayne is on he's on cocaine right now. So I hope you guys don't mind.
Animation.
We're all used to it. We're all used to it, and it's a crack for animation. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So gosh, I lost my terms. Oh yeah. So I have to give a big shout out to Disney, because Aaron Ong, I asked Aaron Ong, Matt Roberts, Tracy Campbell, and Disney Legal, because I asked them, can I show some stuff, behind the scenes stuff from work?
Yeah.
And they said, yes, that's okay to show. And I guess this video can be recorded too. I just needed to put like this little watermark on the bottom of the things I'm going to show, but so they let me show it, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had asked to show more stuff too, because I would have. So I only just asked for a little. Right. But anyway, big thank you that they're letting me do this, because I think this will really help.
Shots.
Really, it's a really. I think it's a good example because of. Oh, I'll show you why. So I had. What I'm going to show is I'm going to show shot from Bold. So in one version, so what I had to do was I animated it once, and they loved it, and it was great, and it was approved. And then they looked at the whole movie, and then the tone was a little like he was coming off as a little too angry. So like they had to, instead of like angry, just more, and disgusted or whatever, like it's more like exhausted.
Yeah.
So instead of so there was like tonal shift to the way the delivery of the dialogue is. So I had to animate it twice, and it's a different read. It's the text is the same, but the subtext is different. So that's what I wanted to talk about with subtext. And I think it's a perfect example because I had to do it twice, and you see the two different. You can compare it. So hopefully this is helpful to see the process and seeing like, okay, yeah, this is how one way, exact same text, just different subtext.
Got it.
Okay, I could share screen right on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and to Wayne's point, I mean, it's awesome we get to see this, and I'm so glad Disney's kind of been in full support of Rise Up since the beginning. So. This is so great that we get to see this work.
Yeah, thank you to Disney for
peek behind the curtain here.
Okay, so here is. Okay, can you guys see this? Wait. I don't think you guys can hear the audio yet. Let me make sure that the audio is share computer audio screen. Okay. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if the video is going to be choppy, so chime in to see if the video is choppy or not on the Zoom playback. Okay, so here's the first version.
Ugh, you pigeons are useless. I need someone on the inside, someone close to the green-eyed man. A cat.
Okay, did that play? Okay. Okay, cool. So in this, just for setup, he's talking to these pigeons. He thinks that the pigeon, the green-eyed man or the cats have stolen his owner, and so now he's trying to find his owner. So he's talking to these pigeons, and the pigeons aren't offering him anything. So he's saying, "Oh, you pigeons are useless." So the way that I am animating this is I'm thinking about the acting, and I'm thinking about the subtext in here. So like instead of me planning this out, I'm not saying the dialogue like, "Oh, you pigeons are useless," and acting that out. The way that I like to work too is like I will act out a scene in front of a mirror, or I'll just close my eyes and think about certain things, like think about like what my body is doing, and I would just feel it out. I know some people like to videotape themselves too, and like I think that's cool. What I would recommend is you. My wife came in and took a picture. Anyway, what I would recommend is don't act out the text, but act out the subtext. So so in this first part.
Hi, Wayne. Really quick.
Yeah.
Do you mind for for a few people, like what you mean by subtext versus
Sure.
text?
Yeah. So I think it will be clear when I act it out.
Okay.
So the text is
Ugh, you pigeons are useless.
You pigeons are useless. But the subtext that I'm acting out is, look at you, you're disgusting, you're a disgrace, like, oh, you're gross, like how you're not a help at all. Like that's the subtext that I'm saying. So I'm acting that out, and when I act that out, it forces me, like I notice I'm doing things like, look at you, and so like I'm acting out like, look at you, you're disgusting, like I'm looking you up and down type of thing. And so that's like, oh, okay, I noticed I did that. So maybe so I'll put that aside. It's like, maybe I'll do that. And I'll try out different things, acting out different subtext, like, but this is what I want to say, or this is what the character is thinking and feeling. And so I act that out and I see what I'm doing, or like what signals communicate that idea. So I want to just preface this. This process seems very like analytical, and I don't want to get too much in my head. So I do want to keep it fresh, where I'm acting it out, and then I'm seeing what my body is doing naturally. So that's actually Michael talked about this. Michael Herrera talked about this recently, and it was interesting to hear him as a story artist saying the same thing, that he does this as well. So what I'm doing is I'm acting out the subtext. So like this first part, you can see he's saying, you pigeons are useless. But what I'm really saying is, oh, look at you, you're disgusting. He's looking him up and down, like, look at you, you're gross. Like that's,
Ugh, you pigeons are useless.
That up and down look. So I put that in there.
Hey, Wayne, am I wrong in thinking that I've seen you, when you do your thumbnails, you will write down the subtext. Yes. So you'll have the dialogue, what the dialogue is saying, but then you'll actually write down what the character is thinking, the subtext behind it.
Yes, and this is what my next slide is.
Oh, awesome!
You're too good, Trent. You're too good. Okay, so this is kind of like how I plan it out, and I don't always do this. I don't want to I don't want to get too in my head, but at the same time I know I want to kind of think about what I want to say. again, kind of like this on the X sheet. Like, so I will write down sometimes I'll, you know, I should be writing down the subtext, but I kind of like in my head, I know what the subtext is. I'm already thinking about it so much. So in this page, really, I'm just like thinking about the subtext, and then I'm writing down those notes like, oh, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do this, or this is something I acted out. So, you know, you pigeons are useless. Can you see this, what I'm writing? Okay. I need someone on the inside, someone close to the green-eyed man. A cat. Okay, so in here, like I wrote down like, you pigeons are useless. And maybe he's clenching teeth, inhale, exasperated. I need someone on the inside, someone, maybe that is where like head up, idea, so pause. So if I'm doing a pause there, maybe I precede that pause with movement, so there's better contrast. So I wrote down movement, but then that works perfectly because I need someone on the inside is searching. So that's like external, you know, like external searching, like I need someone on the inside, like thinking, and then boom, internal, like, and then thinking, oh, I have an idea. So that's perfect. So maybe I'll use that movement. So it's like searching, and then I came up with an idea. So now it's still, so there's that pause. Okay. Someone close to the green. So, and I put like blank, blank, head dip, heart open. So affirmation, focus, like someone, that's who it is. That's what I wanted to get across. The green-eyed man, how does he feel about the green-eyed man? Well, the green-eyed man is like the person who he thinks stole his owner. So there's maybe spite in there. So the lower lid's like the green-eyed man, like, you know, squinting, like that's how he feels about the green-eyed man. And like the mouth shapes on there, like the gree, when you say gree, like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Cause like the corners push back on the cheeks and it's already kind of like pushing up on those lower lids. So why don't I just go with that? So like the green-eyed man, like, you know, chuckle, smirk, a cat. And I wrote subtext, of course. So it's not a cat, it's of course. That's the subtext. Okay, so let me go ahead and play that one more time with that in mind.
You pigeons are useless. You pigeons are useless. I need someone on the inside, someone close to the green-eyed man. A cat.
Okay.
You pigeon.
You're disgusting. You look at you. You're disgusting. Eye roll, like, why am I wasting my time with you? I need to find someone on the inside. And so searching movement, and then pause. Think, someone close to the green-eyed man. So like the lower lids, the spite in there. Green-eyed man. Thought. Yeah, of course. A cat. Of course. Okay. So that's kind of like the subtext in there. And I'm breaking it down into phrases. Notice like how like it's like one phrase or one thought, and then the next thought, and then the next thought. So you know, just to keep things clear. And hopefully that communicates, you know, again, like when people say, what is the character thinking? What is the character feeling? Hopefully that comes across, because there's gesture. Sorry, let me stop sharing so you can see. So there's gestures that the human body does that are signals, you know, that communicate something. And actually, this is another one I recommend people watching. There's a video on this as well. It's like an old PBS video, people watching, but it talks about like how like there's certain gestures and things like that like communicate different things. Or because this whole idea of people watching, it's kind of, he talks about like how, you know, like in bird watching, you know, you look at like the, you know, behaviors and things like that and what it means. And I have a fun story after this. I'll talk about that. But okay, so that was one version of the shot. Now, so it was coming off as a little too harsh. So they re-recorded John Travolta, to say it. Actually, you know what? There's a fun story. I just realized this last week. John Travolta. Oh, so I supervise Bolt and Elsa, and Bolt is voiced by John Travolta, and Elsa is Adele Dazeem. So anyway, sorry. I just realized that. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway.
Right when you said John Travolta and Elsa, I knew you were going with that.
Me too. Yeah.
All right. So let me go ahead into this next one. So this one, in this performance, the one that he talks about. Oh, sorry. This performance, the way he does it, it comes off. I'll just go ahead and play it. Let me share the screen. It comes off as more exhausted. Wait, did I select audio too? Let me make sure. Okay, so screen share audio. Okay, here's the new version.
You pigeons are you pigeons are useless. I need someone on the inside, someone close to the green-eyed man. A cat.
Okay, so let me go to, this is not something where I could just basically replace the audio and put it into the old animation, because the subtext is completely different. The way that he says it, it sounds more exhausted, right? So here's the new breakdown of it. You pigeons are useless. I need someone on the inside, someone close to the green-eyed man, or someone close to the green-eyed man, a cat. So same text, different delivery, but the subtext is completely different. Okay, so go from frustrated to despair, head up, head down, defeat, open eyes, head up. I wrote like little notes for the eyes, like the pattern of the eyes. I need someone on the inside. So browse up, got an idea, excited in the eyes. Browse down, eyes searching. I have a plan. That's the, oops. Okay, I have a plan. Cool. Someone look at the pigeons close to the green-eyed man. So when he says close, the subtext is not you guys. So I wrote down here, the truth of the shot. The pigeons inadvertently help Bolt discover what he needs through an argument frustration. So, and then discovery, explaining what he needs based on what he doesn't need. So he doesn't need the pigeons, but by saying that, he discovers what he does need. So green-eyed man motion, and then pause again. So the contrast, something like that. Strong inhale, figured it out. Process in head, smile, beat. A cat looks over to the pigeons. You gave me the idea, addressing the pigeons. You gave me the idea. So he's going to look at them first. Beat. A look down. Yes, this will work. That's the subtext. Yeah, this will work. Okay, so let me go ahead and play that one more time. Okay. Frustration. Exhaustion. You pigeons are useless. Also the staging. Now we see the pigeons in here, so I can play off that. Needs to come up with a plan. Okay. So that was the eyes, like, okay, I need to come up with a plan. I need someone on the inside thinking about it. Someone who's close to the green-eyed man. So, but what he's really saying subtext-wise is, I need someone, not you guys. So he does like this, not you guys, eye roll type of thing. To the green-eyed man. Then, so it's not like the spite anymore. It's like, I need someone close to the green-eyed man. So I have the character in motion, pause. So it's like, oh, so now we're focusing on the face. He looks over to the pigeons. So it's like the affirmation or confirmation, I guess. Look, wait a second. A cat, that's the solution. So wait a second, that's the subtext. Like, wait. Yeah, and then now going off on his mission.
Wait,
So
that's such a cool example. I just want to point out too that just an observation, like in that full body shot, you're choosing all, like the thing you talked about, you know, using all the tools like the shoulders and the head. With Bullet, I love what you've done with, like at the beginning, the head drop and the ears drop and the tail drop, and then when he takes that step away, you know, he's like stepping away from the pigeons because he doesn't need them, and that little thinking beat of seeing his tail stop moving, and I just love that you're choosing like the head angle that's going to show the eyes the clearest when he's thinking, so you can see the eyes, the pupils move. You're really just like using every part of the toolbox. It's amazing.
That's hopefully like, you know, because every part communicates something. So hopefully, and like when I look at it, I'm thinking like, oh man, there's some things that I really could tweak. I think everyone has that when they look at their old animation, that they're like, ah, but like, you know, I guess the idea is like try to say something and like, you know, think about like distance, even like, or relationship, or, you know, like if the character is stepping close to the person or moving back, or like thinking about everything. You know what's really cool, and I mentioned this to a few of the mentees. Remember that old, I shouldn't say that, but there's a short that Pixar did, Jerry's Game. Look at the composition on that. Like, I recommend like everyone watching this, they should watch that short, because like it is awesome the way they stage that. Like, and like how, like, you know, when he's losing, like you look at the chess pieces, and the chess pieces, the way it's shot, like the chess piece is like huge in frame, and like, you know, like, you know, the one whose version he's losing is like tiny, and like just the relationships there, and like even the camera choices tell the story. Bobby, you have the same cup. I'm using the same. Well, I don't have it here. But
The butterbeer cup?
Yeah, I just had that here.
Oh my
Anyway,
god, that's so fun.
so, cool. So yeah.
You yelled my name, and I was like,
Sorry.
Hey Wayne, we talked about this a little bit with the Michael Herrera talk too. Like, and I've gotten to see you kind of work, you know, in close relationships. It seems like you work the same way where, and I think Frank Thomas said it, where 90% of your time, maybe not 90%, but a large chunk of your time is planning and thinking. Is that, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it is a lot of it. And because again, you want to know what you want to say, you know? So like, yeah, it's funny, like how I learned a lot. Again, I'm going to mention John Ripa again. Like I learned a lot from him, like when he was telling me about how he works, and like when he plans out a scene, and like he said he would walk around the building just like for like most of the time, just like walking around and thinking about the shot, and like yeah, it's because again, like we only have so much time to say something in the shot. The animated films are short. Also, when you have a shot, you have to know what the shot is about. You don't want to like try to stuff everything in there. Like, I'm not saying that, but like you do have a limited amount of time. So like, what is it that the shot should say, or why is the shot in the film? And then what is it that you could say with a performance that says something about who that character is? I'm going to show one more clip, and I'm not going to. Well, let's see. I wish I had, again, like I was kind of afraid that Disney wouldn't approve it, so like I didn't put in a request for a bunch of stuff. But I think this is good. This is fine. So I'm going to talk about. Let me go ahead and share. So share.
Someone just asked.
Sorry, was that?
Did someone just asked, oh, you're going to show a shot from Raya? No.
Nope.
oh yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get fired, all of us.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, I'll just play it.
I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Let it go. Let it go.
Okay, so in this one, when Elsa is taking off her crown, So
By the way, this is my favorite Wayne shot that when I was there. I was gonna say this is my favorite Wayne shot in the world.
Yeah, that was such a casual showing, but man, that shot.
Yeah, it's so casual. Like, hey, I kind of did this shot. Yeah, maybe you guys remember it from a movie you may have heard of. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. That's my favorite Wayne shot.
So these are some of the thumbnails when she takes off her crown. Like, it's not like, and because I animated, so okay, totally being honest, when I animated this, the first time I animated it, I was rushing because I needed to get it in for the preview screening, and I started animating it, and like I didn't do my homework, and I animated a version, and I was like, this is not. And it was half blocked, and like I was like, I don't like this at all. This is not where it needs to be, because I was trying to, like, I wasn't taking the time to plan it, and so I was like, I was drawing over it, and I was doing like my own like drawovers. I was like, no, the way she does the crown, it shouldn't be this and toss. And so I was like, okay. And so I have a bunch of other thumbnails. Basically what I did was at night I went in and like I just acted out, thought about the subtext, what I wanted to say, thumbnailed out a bunch of different versions or for each part, and then took those thumbnails and then just kind of like compiled it and composed it. So it was like, oh yeah, this would work if it does this, and then it builds up this tension in the hold, and then release the tension, because that's what kind of the song is. Anyway, so this part right here, when she takes off her crown, I was like, okay, what does the crown represent for her? The crown isn't like, oh, it's this delicate crown that I want to, I don't want to break. It's like the crown is the past, and the crown is her fear. So it's like, yeah, like, so how does she feel about that? So she's gonna rip it off. She's gonna like, this thing, I'm not gonna let it control me anymore. So she's gonna, throw it. So these are some thumbnails. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna scroll through it and just talk about like what she's thinking here. Just focus in on the eyes. So she's like, I wish this thing could step through better, but anyway, okay. So she's singing, I'm never going back, past and past. But she rips off the crown. See this thing? Like there's this fear in there, and there's this pain of that past in that crown. So like that's what I want to get across here when she's singing that. Like this thing that controlled me. And then she's saying, you know what? This thing, and then she's smiling a little bit. I'll tell you where it can go. It can, and she tosses it. And then there's other things like she's free, like literally letting her hair down. And then she's enjoying what she created. But like, at least for the crown part, like, there's these little moments in here, like what she's thinking. So it's the pain of the past. She's you know what? I'm not gonna let that control me. And then you know what? This is like I'll tell you where this can go. So that's kind of like the thought behind there. And hopefully, like, if people don't see it, like hopefully they'll pick up on it. They'll feel it, or they'll because I think like gestures and things like that, like when we're kids, when we're like just babies, like we're looking at the world and we're picking up on facial expressions and things like that, like, and like even little, this is another thing I mentioned, I talked about to students. Like I love sorry, I'm gonna try to stay focused and finish my thought first, and then, but yeah. So there's like these little signals, even like that, like say something, and they all communicate something. So what I feel like we should at least, like the very least, is think about what we want to say to the audience, and then it's like, who is that character? How can we use everything to say something about who that character is or what they're going through at that moment. So yeah. So one thing that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna show something. This is this guy, Illusion of Life, the book. Let me see if I could find it really quick. There's like in Rescuers, there's actually the section that they're talking about is on.
Wayne, really quickly, can I ask you, as an animator that was cast this shot, and knowing that it was going to be like an iconic Disney moment, was that is that the pressure that you kind of kept in your mind, or are you 100% like focused on like what the scene needs and that kind of stuff? Because I felt like sometimes I overthought it. I think when I was animating at Disney, of like, this is like a Disney iconic moment, or like this is in a Disney film, that kind of stuff, and maybe that kind of like put the pressure on myself, I think. Did you, kind of think about that stuff with that shot specifically?
Oh, I feel like every shot, even like the most basic shot. No, I'm serious. Like even the most basic shot, like you need to think about who that character is, because like, yeah. I mean, I gravitated toward that shot because like I there was something that I was like, oh, I want to say something with that. And actually, there was a shot in Frozen 2 that I really wanted to do, because like from a personal level, like I knew what was going in Elsa's head. And like, remember how I was mentioning about like the whole shared experience thing with Warner Laughlin? There was actually I keep switching subjects. I'm so sorry, people. So there on Frozen 2, there was the first shot in Trent. You know this, yeah. So there was a shot in Frozen 2, the first shot where Elsa is singing "Show Yourself," where she's coming off the knock. Well, not coming. She's on the knock. She's riding the knock, and it's the first time she sings. And actually, in the docuseries, you see that shot, an animated shot, but like you could hear how they're talking about how before, like it was like she comes in and she's like singing it really loud and everything, and like it's but then they changed it so it's like it's softer, and she's coming in like she feels like she's home now. And as soon as the directors told me, or told all of us, that was the direction they were going to take that, I was like, oh man, I totally know what that feels like. Actually, so right before Frozen started, my dad passed away. And so one of the things that we were, so we knew he wanted to pass away at home. So we were at the hospital, and then like someone had to be there to like make sure that the hospice people could deliver the bed at the house, at my parents' house. So, you know, it's like all delivery services is like between the hours of like noon to midnight, you know, is like when it wasn't like that, but it was like a several hour window. So I was the one who was like, okay, I'm gonna go home, and then like I moved all the couches away and everything, and got everything all ready for the delivery person to come. And then there was some time that I had at the house, and this is the house that I grew up in. And so I just started walking around the house to like all the rooms that that I grew up in, like so, but rooms I hadn't been in like years, like my parents' bedroom, and like my parents' bathroom where the sink was, and I was like, oh my gosh, like some things didn't even change. Like there was like the toothbrush holder was the same, and like the paper towel roll dispenser was the same, and like it was like that was when I was like a kid, and like it's still there. And then like my mom would use like she would inventory things, and she would put like little cards like, oh, we need to refill the paper towels and stuff, and like in the pantry thing in the bathroom. And so I looked down, and I saw it is still there, from like the 80s, like, you know, just like it's still there. And so it was like, oh my gosh, and all these memories started coming back, and like it was a really difficult time, but like I was so thankful for that, because like it was like just walking around that house, like, sorry, it filled me with joy. Like there was you know, anyway, I it's it was comforting. And my friend Becky, she texted me. Becky is also on Frozen. She texted me to see how I was doing, and I was like, I'm actually doing okay. Like, you know, I told her I just walked around the house, and like it was really nice. And so like when the directors described that moment uh, of what Elsa's going through, and like, you know, she finally arrived at this place that like uh, that she feels like home. It's home. Like there's something in there that in Atahan that like speaks to her, and like that magical side of her, that, and she's so happy. And like the whole Frozen 1 and you know, like up to that point, like she went through a lot, and to see her that happy, and I don't know, just being home again, like I was like, I know exactly how that shot should be. Like I know where her head is. Like, and I shared that with the directors, and they were like, you do that shot. Like, and so so yeah, I that, you know, it meant to me a little bit more on a personal level, but at the same time, like I was still like trying to focus in, like what is the shot about? What is, like, you know, what is the things that I want to accomplish, the phrasing and things like that. But like I wanted to make sure the tone felt right, and like when she's there's a lot of things in there that mean certain things to me, and like what I wanted to get across. And like also like I wanted, like when she's wiping away the tears of joy, and like I wanted to let the audience know that they can cry in this, because you know what's going to happen later in that song. It's like, okay, you know, it's okay for you to cry. You're seeing Elsa cry. It's okay that, you know, like it's just like permission, I guess. And then also like I knew the mood of it, or what it should feel like, so that just came naturally. But anyway,
This
so
is why
yeah,
this is why we love you.
yeah.
This is why. Yeah, that's a big story.
But so back to but what you were saying about Let It Go, like that shot, like, no, I was just thinking about like, okay, like of course we knew, like we felt like this is really special, but like when you're just animating a shot, you just have to think about that shot, and like what, you know, every shot is important, you know, like you have to think of it that way. Like even if you might be like, oh man, I gotta do this or whatever, it's a hard shot or whatever, or like a boring shot, it's like, well, no, like it shouldn't be that way. I mean, like like the character, even if the character is doing nothing, like it's an opportunity to tell something about that character. Anyway, I'm going off.
That little bit that you just talked about, Wayne, kind of reminded me of, like, you know, when we're all kind of like just discovering like Disney animation, and then like, you know, just even hearing Glenn Keane talk about his shots on Tarzan, and how every shot was like a life experience for him that he experienced with
Yeah,
his family, of just like his daughter being born, or, you know, just anything like that. And I think that's, for me, what made Disney animation in the beginning stand out from regular Saturday morning cartoons or anything like that, is because it felt like really the Disney animators were bringing their life experience into their shots, talking about like what you see in the eyes and how the character's feeling that way, and sort of bringing their personal life experience. I remember watching all of those DVD making ofs. Every Disney animator would talk about, I remember Glenn would talk about his life stories. Randy Haycock would talk about, you know, how he felt like this in some way or another, pulling from their life. I think that was the most inspiring thing, because they weren't just kind of like moving drawings, but they were just kind of putting their life out on paper, you know, onto the screen. And so was one of the most like inspiring things. Mark Hamill too, Eric Goldberg too. So what you just shared now, I mean, that harkens back to like what inspired me in the beginning.
There's like this truth, right, like that we try to put in our work, and like there's a danger with that too, because like you know you don't want to like because you don't want to be like too attached to it, because like if the director like says like oh no it should be this way, like you don't want to like you have to think you're like you want to be like
Yeah.
you want to be passionate about it, but at the same time you also have to remember that okay this is the director's film too, like you know it's like you're really just you're helping tell this story of this character, and like so you can't like be too I don't know protective I don't know not protective but like yeah and you have to be able to like you know work with everyone in that, so it's like it's this there's a lot going with or a lot to think about in this that side of it but
it's fascinating. Just it's you're translating that emotion or that personal feeling into a shot that services the story. And I think it might have been Glenn. I'm not too sure, but Bobby, when you talked about like drawings that move, I think it was him that said, you know, they're drawings that move, but they're supposed to be drawings that move you, and there's like an emotional element to it.
Yeah.
I just love that quote.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I pulled this. I opened this up just because at the time we were talking about. Sorry, keep jumping around. We were talking about expressions and things like how they communicate different things, and this shot is really cool in Rescuers, and in The Illusion of Life, they're talking about, you know, the expressions and everything and like what it means. Actually, this book is great because it's like this audio commentary, but you have to like it's one of those books where you read it once and you're like, cool. As a student, you read it and like, oh, that was really cool. I learned this. And then like later on in life, like in your animation career, you read it again and it's like, oh my gosh, I missed that the first time I read it. And it's only until you're animating and you're really deep into the acting. What book is that? This is Illusion of Life. Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson. Actually, there's if you're on Disney Plus or you have Disney Plus, there's a documentary on Frank and Ollie called Frank and Ollie that is awesome. And it's so inspiring. Yes, it's the Bible of animation. Yes.
It is the Bible. And Wayne, exactly what you're saying. I read that in college, of course, like first year of college, and I didn't read it again for years later, you know, probably 7 or 8 years later. And it meant something totally different to me. And now you're kind of excited me to pick it up and read it again, because I'll probably learn things and pick up on things I didn't quite see then.
You know, it's like, go ahead. Sorry.
Really quick, Wayne. The cool thing I always thought about Disney animation too was like you have The Illusion of Life, which was written by Frank and Ollie, and then they mentored people like Glenn Keane,
Yes.
and even more like John Pomeroy, and Eric Goldberg, and then they in turn, like Glenn, mentored you guys on Tangled, and then there's kind of like that cool lineage of like passing down information all the way from like the beginning of like Snow White, of just kind of like there's Milts, there's the Frank and Ollies, they pass it down to Glenn, Mark Hand, they pass it, and Mark Hand is still there, so he's passing it down to you guys, and Glenn passed it down to. I was always jealous of anyone that worked on Tangled, and then you guys passing it down to the next generation. There's like a lineage, a pure Disney animation lineage.
And it's totally is that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it's not that long, right? Because I've thought about that before. You know, when I worked with like Amy was my mentor, and I'm thinking like, wow, she learned from Glenn Keane, who learned from Ollie Johnson. Like that's you know you're so
from Fred Moore and
Fred Moore was Yep. Yeah, no, it's great. That's kind of that's what I love about animations. Like I love this about Disney too, because like when I first started there was an apprenticeship program, and it was like you are working under a supervising animator who worked under another supervising animator, and it is like you said, Bobby, this lineage, and like it's a craft, right? It's like you ever see Whisper of the Heart? Oh man, that's such a good movie. Oh, okay, all right, Miyazaki, Miyazaki did the storyboards for it, but it was directed by Kondo, I think it's last. Anyway, Whisper of the Heart, Studio Ghibli film. It's awesome. Anyway, there's this part in there that like I don't know. It's like they're talking about the like art, and they're talking about like the craft. And there's this girl who wants to be a writer, and she doesn't know if she's good enough yet. And it's like, oh, it's such a great film. Everyone who's an artist should watch that film. Anyway, there's this part in there, like this boy, he's building this violin, and he's going to go off, I think for the summer or something, like to train under a master violin maker. And I think about like, man, animation is kind of like that. Like it's an art form, and like you are learning from the generation that came before, and like, but it's important. And like, actually, I don't know. Well,
no, 100%, 100%.
There's something that John told me, and I don't know if I should say it. I think it's fine.
Do it.
Like he was like, I taught you everything that I know, and like now it's your turn to pass that knowledge on to the next person. And like that was the last thing when I graduated and became an animator. Like that was the thing. Like he was like, okay, now you gotta teach this. Yeah. So like it is that. It's like it's this thing you pass down.
Yep.
And these guys did it. Like they wrote this book, and this is a huge book. And they talk about a lot of things. But yeah, so when you read it, like it is like this like audio commentary of like the shorts. Like if you read the shorts, if you watch the shorts that they talk about, then they'll talk about the backstory. And I was reading it, so what I did was I was like, oh, what short are they talking about? So I pulled it up and on YouTube, and they had the Disney classics one, the tin can ones, and they had the shorts, and you could watch the shorts and then you read it, what they're talking about. It's like, this is an audio commentary. This is basically an audio commentary. And they talk about the different versions that they did, and then like why they made different choices in the acting. And it's like, that's awesome. That's really cool. Like as an animator now reading this, like, dude, they were everything is in this. It's all, but it's like you don't understand like what it is when you're a student. Like you're just like first learning, and it's like, oh my gosh, they were talking about this all the time. Anyway, but what I was gonna talk about with this.
Oh yeah, that's a great shot. Yep. This
last image is like she's trying to be nice to Penny, and like, oh, you must try harder, and then like, this last image right here, you could see her like true self coming through. Like it's right before the cut. Actually,
man, I can watch those line tests on YouTube just for a day.
There's two shots where she's doing that. I think maybe there's three, but there's one shot in there where at the very end she turns to Penny, and she's like, you see the like snarl, and it's only on screen for just a little bit, and then it cuts back to Penny. That's like that, like the true emotion, like coming through, like the micro expression coming through. Like Dr. Paul Ekman, like he was the one who would talk about micro expressions and like, all the little gestures and things like you see in the face. Actually, sorry, one more.
Wayne's gone again.
I don't have any books anymore. Like,
me neither. I'm like, where does
they talk about this in that documentary on the face? This is a book that my friend bought this for me. But like, there's this documentary on the face that was pretty interesting, and there's. See if we can find it real quick.
By the way, yes, Wayne gets 5% of all the sales of all these books he's promoting.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
sponsors on these.
So they talk about the masking smile. So Margaret Thatcher, the prime minister, she was like, she was being interviewed. They talk about like how she's being interviewed by this reporter, and like she keeps avoiding the question. The interviewer keeps asking her this question that she doesn't want to. She just tries to avoid it. And finally, you see one frame.
Oh my God.
Of like her true expression, like rage.
Oh my God.
Stop asking me this. But she's composing herself so well. But you see like that one thing. And remember, like I was talking about like point counterpoint earlier, like in design, like you're just like the thing, but like This
Yeah.
actually, this book is point counterpoint, right? So it's like black and white, and then like boop in red,
Yeah.
like that's the counterpoint, right?
Sure.
So it's like that. It's like you think about like design, but you think about facial expressions, and it's like here's this one thing, and then you see that one little thing that's like it speaks louder, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's like that's the whole Louis Armstrong thing. Like he's playing, like there's all this music going on, but then when he plays the trumpet, it's like just those few notes, and it's like so poignant, and like it's so loud, and it's like, oh wow, that really, like, and it had the power to it. And I don't know, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun figuring out all these things, and like
Now I'm curious, Wayne. Like, is there an actor or actress that you recommend that does that really well? That like we can all study.
oh, I don't know.
That
There's a
on the
lot.
top of your head.
There's a
Anyone
lot.
in the chat?
There's a lot.
Recommending Trent. What do you think? Anyone?
Oh, you know what?
Like,
Actually,
off the top of your head.
Well, you know, sorry, I was just thinking that I feel like we need to have, and let's see what people say in the comments, but I feel like we need to have Wayne back like every month. And we just do like a geeking out with Wayne because I want to dive into this too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that we would do in college. Like this, like just geek out stuff. So thank you guys for allowing me to do this and geek out with you guys, because this is fun.
No, this is cool. So cool.
One that came to mind, and this is one I actually just shared recently with a student, was something that John Ripa would talk about too, and it's something that it's kind of common. So, but like, actually, there's a few. Now I'm thinking about John, and now a bunch of them are coming to mind. So one of them was from Casablanca. Peter Lorre is like this sleazy guy, and there's the Humphrey Bogart character, and Bogart, he's like composed and like, you know, well put together, and there's Peter Lorre's character who's coming in, and he's like really sleazy, and like he's offering him these papers, right? You know, the community papers, and he's like, you think better of me, and you know, like if you know, now that anyway, so the way it's really cool, John, the way he was talking, he was breaking down, like it's just noticing little things, like Peter Lorre, he takes a glass, but he doesn't drink it, and then he takes out a cigarette, and he doesn't get to it. He's like slimy, right? That's he's sleazy, and like. So he never takes a whiff of a cigarette. He never drinks. So finally he has like different, like he has a bunch of different glasses, and he has 2 cigarettes that he doesn't know what to do with at the end, and he doesn't smoke it. And it's like, and you could tell, like, you know, I think he says like, I hope you think, I don't know what he says something like, I was thinking, and he's trying to be confident. And then Bogart's like, what do you, why does he say something like what do you, I can't remember what he says. He says something like about how dare you think, or what do you have to offer, or what do you have to think, and then Peter Lorre is back to like, oh, nothing. Like it's like, it's so good, like just the character building in that. It's like he's like trying, like this sleazy guy who is trying to act big in front of Bogart, and then like is anyway, that's one. And then this is one that John would talk about. He was saying, like, look at in Braveheart, there's the scene where so Mel Gibson's character is meeting the Queen for the first time. It's like the first confrontation. So, and there's all these looks with the eyes. And so like there's like the friend of the Queen, or the maiden, or whatever, and then the Queen, and then when he walks in, like she does a glance to the Queen, and like or whoever, and it's kind of like, oh. and then she's like, not right now. But it speaks so loud. The scene itself is talking about, I think it's talking about body language in the scene itself. And it's funny because like it's all about the eyes. Look at the eyes in that scene. and like, and it communicates so well. It's so good. Anyway, that John was like, he was like looking at that and he was like, this is amazing. Like, you got to look at this. And like, anyway, you really should have John on this, because I feel like I'm just going to be talking about John the whole time.
We should have you and John together.
I was just going to say that we should do a group session.
Yeah,
well, I would love to talk to John. I think you should the John is awesome. Like, you should get him on this.
I should say, as an aside, like the animation department at Disney, this is the kind of stuff that we would do all the time. I mean, like, you know, from month to month, they would have just kind of like a guest speaker. One of the animators would come in and just break down scenes, and break down like the acting on this scene for this particular character, and geek out like all of us are doing now. That would happen pretty often. I'm not sure if you guys still do it, but when
Mallory actually brought that back. She just they're doing we just had one where Tony and Becky, Nara, they were just all talking about their shots just this past week or yesterday. Was it yesterday?
It was 2 days ago. And you know, Bert Klein was doing a series for a bit too, where he'd break down. I mean, Bert's like a Rolodex of information for every classic Disney film. So he would break down scenes and point out little details like this, just fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I'm gonna start reviews at 1, but and so I'm sorry to have like a hard out, but like, Wayne, I mean, my man, pleasure to have you. You've been so generous with your time and your effort making the video, geeking out with us today. And that was amazing, man. This was awesome. And we got to do it again soon. We got to get your mentor, John Ripa, on the call. And, you know, if there's what do you think, Trent? Like, is there anything lastly you wanted to ask Wayne, or Wayne, is there anything lastly you wanted to say or wrap up or anything like that?
Well, I'll just say quickly that Wayne, you always kind of like over deliver in every way possible, and just you're so generous with your time. And if everyone watching, you know, probably realizes that Wayne is such a teacher, and I'm watching this stuff thinking like I'm learning a ton just being around you all the time. So thank you for doing that. And I'm serious. We'd love to have you back on here. Maybe next time we take a shot and we just break it down for an hour and geek out over whether it's a live action shot or a shot from Disney. But Geek Out with Wayne feels like a fun ongoing segment here.
I'd be happy to do it. I think you can get there's a lot of people that can do this too, but like, I would love to. I mean, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on here. I think like, and this whole Rise Up animation, you know, feedback review. I think it's a great cause. And like, what's awesome is you guys just did it. Like, you guys like saw that there was this thing that needed to be, you know, fixed, and like put it together, like, you know, and built this whole thing. And so like, you know, that's awesome. I'm really glad that you guys did that. And like, I'm very happy to be a part of this as well.
Wayne is a huge part of it. His name is all on the sign-up sheets, like many times on the sign-up sheets every week. And again, you taking the time to put together that like bouncing ball thing video, and it was like in many disciplines. And Wayne's like, sorry, I didn't have enough time to do anything. And then he delivered this like hour-and-a-half video going into in-depth of like his thoughts on all of the mediums. But
yeah,
Bobby
and I were texting yesterday, just saying like, just between us, and we're like, of course Wayne did 3 mediums. And then Bobby's like, man, Wayne's just the best person we know, like collectively. Like, Wayne's just the best, man.
I told Trent that like, Wayne loves what he does for a living more than anyone else I've ever met that does anything for a living. So I mean, that is not hyperbole. It is a real deal. Yeah, it's always been like that with Wayne.
Well, thank you.
Passionate person. That's why he is where he is now.
Wayne, thanks for doing this morning call here, and I saw at one point we had, about 500 people watching. So thank you for just inspiring 500 people that are part of the Rise Up community now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. There was one thing that I forgot to talk about, and I think it's fine though. It was a it was like right after college, or like and how I actually got into Disney, and like so hopefully this is helpful. This is the only reason I'm bringing this was not to give up, to keep going. And like when I was putting together my reel, I knew like it was not like, I mean, I don't know, I was trying my best, and that's all you can do is try your best and know that you're going to get better if you keep at it. And I went to SIGGRAPH actually 2004, and or 2004, yeah, 2004 I think, 2003, 2004 I think. Anyway, and I was like, I don't know if I should go. I don't have a reel. You know what? I'm just going to go anyway and just look around, because I'd never been to SIGGRAPH before. Again, this was way back when, different time, but I went and I was like, do I go down there? And I went anyway, and I just talked to a bunch of people just to like see like what it's like, so I went to the Blue Sky booth, and I talked to Dave Gallagher there, and like I don't think we just met once, and like it was like, oh cool, like he talked just very openly, like just talked about stuff, and like I actually borrowed a laptop, someone's laptop, and like I had where I was at with my demo reel, and I just showed him that, and like he was like, oh, you could probably do rigging, and like maybe you should apply. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, that was like, well, you know what, maybe I'll walk around and show him where I'm at on my thing, and like what could I lose, and then I just went around and like asking for advice. And then one of the people who I talked to there was Mike Belzer, and he was the head of animation on Meet the Robinsons. I didn't know that at the time, but he was just like, he saw me looking at the artwork, and I was just geeking out over the Joe Mosier artwork that was on the wall. And then he actually came up to me and was like, oh, are you interested in this? And I was like, I actually want to get a job here one day. And like, and I said, well, I have my, like, actually, did I? No, I didn't actually. I take that back. I went 2 days. The first day I went there, and I was like, I didn't have anything. I just went to go look. And I said, well, I could show you something. And so what I did was, that's when I borrowed a laptop, and then I put where I was at. And then I went back a second day and I showed it. And then he asked, well, why don't you put together, like, just submit this, your reel. And then like, and he was like kind enough to like kind of to follow up and like give feedback.
That's great.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, had I not even tried,
yeah,
I would never have got, like, just going to SIGGRAPH, right, just to like, I would never have met him, and I never would have got a job at Disney. And like, it was like, wow, just like something as simple as that is like, should I go or should I? It's like, you know what, I'm gonna go. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's yeah. And like, so Mike was really nice and really great. And then I met Steve Anderson, and like, wow, I remember the first interview I had, and was with Steve Anderson, and like, I don't know. And then the rest was just like, man, there's so many great people in this industry that are like willing to help everyone out. And like, yeah, no, it was great. Anyway, I guess what that was, just don't give up, and like,
take chances, sounds like, too.
Yeah. Just, be nice. be nice though. But yeah. And like I wasn't thinking about like, how they say like networking and stuff like that. I wasn't thinking about networking. I was really I just wanted to talk to these people and like, just, I don't know, get to know them and like see like, oh, what do you think? Or, like, I don't know, just talk to them. Like, I don't know anything about the industry at this point, and like, I just want to talk. And like, and I didn't realize it, but it was like, oh, that's kind of what networking is. Like, it's, and it's like, oh, I didn't even know that I was doing that. Like,
in other people.
yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just fun meeting everyone, and like, or I don't know, it's funny, I'm an introvert, but like by nature, like I think I'm an introvert. It just so happens I'm in very public things, but like, I don't know, just taking that chance and just like talking to people, and just it's almost like other people are so interesting, like I think that's like worth it to like overcome that. And I don't know, it's fun talking to people. It's fun talking to you guys. Like I love talking to you guys. It's
Wayne, this would be an awesome part 2 follow-up conversation, in a couple months, just to like, I'd love to see your college reel, and then see what that 9 months to a year afterwards, like you working on it, and then like go more in depth about you putting yourself out there, because that's such an important part of it. It's really,
yeah, I can show you that. it's like cringe.
Hello, Mr. Belzer. Please give me a job. Hello. That's great. That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, we'd love to. Wayne, you're pretty much, a huge part of the Rise Up family. So we'd love to have you on anytime.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Well, I mean, sorry, Trent, go ahead.
I was just saying my final thank you, Wayne. We all appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you.
And next time we won't book our reviews on the Saturday until like 4 o'clock, just so we can talk for like 6 or 8 hours straight. we keep it going all day.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah. I hope everyone out there has or I was gonna say good day or good night, good evening, good morning. Stay safe out there. Yeah. Hope everyone's doing well.
Do you guys want to sing, me and Trent, do you want to sing the last lines of Let It Go to close it out? I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Wow, Trent didn't even join me with that.
You know what? I'm just laughing because every night I used to go to, we didn't go every night, but every time I went to karaoke with Bobby, at like 1 a.m., he'd sign us up to go up as a duo, and it would be Let It Go every time. So I know Bobby knows the words.
Cleared the room.
Bobby. Oh, man. When I was asking to show those clips, I was thinking, well, maybe they're not gonna let me show it because the audio. So maybe I just remove the audio and I'll ask them, is it okay? And then I'll just say the audio. And I was like, wait a second, that means I'm gonna have to sing it. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, everybody, you're welcome for that blessing of karaoke Zoom thing with Wayne. But yeah, everyone have a great day. I guess we'll see you soon. I think we'll see you Monday. We have a panel on Monday, and it's going to be an exciting one. But yeah, everybody, Trent, good seeing you, brother. Wayne, great seeing you, brother. Have a great weekend, you guys. And this was awesome. This is amazing. This is a master class. We should charge for it. Just kidding.
Well, you guys have a good weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.